and welcome to this next book review with myself, Jackie Jones, and the wonderful Bob Cooke. We've got a different kind of book than what we said at the end of the last book review this week. What have we got, Bob?
We've got this.
The Art of the First Session, Making Psychotherapy Count from the Start by Robert Taibbi. Is that how we're pronouncing it?
Yeah.
I was intrigued when I got the review on this one, or the little write-up on it.
It's what were you intrigued about?
Well, it's just, to be fair, the first thing that popped through my mind was it fits in really well with my hurry up driver.
Oh, well, you'd like this book then?
Yeah, literally, it was like, yeah, let's hit the ground running. We only see them for between, was it 1 and 8 sessions? So we need to hit the ground from the get-go.
Wow, you see, this is what I don't particularly like about the book. There's things I like about it, and other things I'm not too, I don't really like about that much. But if I start saying what I generally thought of this book.
Yes.
I don't know if you know this about me, but I played a lot of chess.
I didn't know. Do you know, I'm learning so many facts about you, Bob.
Yeah. So I played lots and lots of chess, especially when I was a kid, and then I stopped completely. And then when I was about 45, I started playing online chess tournaments again. But I'm pretty addicted. So Stephanie, that's my wife, put a stop to it because I'd be there on the computer for ages and ages and ages. I said I'd go and join a chess club, but it was at the time that the actual therapy group I was running was on, so I couldn't do that. So I didn't play till very recently. I've just started again, actually. And why I'm saying this is, this book reminds me of a chess book.
Okay, interesting.
In other words, if you do this, 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 and this, we'll have checkmate. Or if you do this, this, and this, we'll go on to the middle game. And if you do this, then you might actually lose your queen. It reminds me of chess. It's like a therapy by rote. You know, this session is this system will happen, and everything will be wonderful, and you'll keep the person for the 8 or 9 sessions, and you'll get the money, and you might even get a tip at the end.
Yeah, when you put it like that, that's not how.
No, I don't really. So it put me off the book.
Yeah.
Secondly, in the first chapter and the second chapter, he talks about, well, he's right in this, and that is that we're in the 21st century, and people, it's more come to therapy, it's more accessible. You get therapy on texts, on therapy on social media, therapy on Skype, therapy on Zoom, therapy on emails. So it's a completely different type of therapy, if you like, for when I came into the game in 1984, which was always just simply face-to-face therapy.
Yeah.
So he talks a bit about what the 21st century has brought about in terms of the online medium and how people get to you, and the advantages and disadvantages of the way therapy has moved in the 21st century. I agree with him that we have got all those mechanisms. We've got text therapy.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? We've got Skype therapy, Zoom therapy, email therapy. I'm not a fan of any of them particularly, but we have got all those things, so he's correct. And he talks about that. It's interesting talking about therapy very differently online from face to face. And then he goes on talking about what you started this with, and I disagree with. So he's quoting some research. The book, he's either American or the research is from America, when he says that on average people come to therapy for 7 or 8 sessions, which I don't believe. I can buy it if he's talking about the NHS, or if he's talking about insurance agencies, like there's many and many, of course, in the USA, where people get therapy on through the insurance. So if he's talking about that, yes, then maybe. But in my experience, when people come to private therapy, they stay for much longer than 7 or 8 sessions.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what your experience, but that's certainly mine.
Yeah, I kind of agree. You know, the NHS, you're limited. I think 12 is the most that you can get through that side anyway. I've had clients for years that still religiously come back week after week. When you were talking then, what I was thinking was there's something about having a problem in a certain area and going to therapy to fix that problem. And then that problem will probably show up in a different area and then a different area. Whereas for me, psychotherapy is looking upstream. It's not sorting out a problem. It's looking further back as to why that happened. What is it? You know, my background, my personality, all the deeper stuff that's like a long-term view on things rather than a quick fix for a specific problem, like having an argument with your boss at work or something.
Yeah, so I'm probably the wrong person to read this book in many ways, because I'd be terrible as a short-term psychotherapist. Absolutely dreadful.
Yeah, see, I thought that's what you were going to talk about when you were touching on chess, because chess is a patience game. Chess is a long draw. That's why I don't like chess, I think, because I prefer drafts where you just, you know, can jump lots. That's where I thought you were going with the chess analogy, is that it's more about contemplating and being curious and taking your time. And
well, I agree with. I was talking about the therapy by rote.
yes,
in chess, you've got 3 games really. You've got opening moves leading on to the middle game, leading on to the end game.
yeah.
And he talks about therapy like a series of opening moves, and you don't deviate much from them really, except of course to get certain payoffs.
It doesn't give much opening for our uniqueness. It's kind of like puts, I would imagine there's like a category of person, and that's okay, but then we're not all the same.
No. And another thing I don't like about this book, so I don't know if there's going to be more things I don't like than I do like, but anyway, I'll go on to the don't like. I don't know if he was a salesman in another world, but he talks a lot about pitching the therapy in the first session to keep the client and to make sure that they don't go away. And he talks very much about how you can maneuver the conversation, just like salesmen do.
Yeah.
So it's very, I don't like that. Given maybe he's talking about 7, 8 sessions, let's give him the benefit of the doubt then. It does talk about some interesting things. It does talk about the need for connection.
Good.
It's important. It does talk about contracting. It does talk about initial phases, middle phases, and end phases. And there's some useful things that he does talk about in terms of exploration, looking at goals and options and how people can resolve their problems quickly. So if you're into that, like you perhaps alluded to, you might have been to with your drafts analogy, then there's things in this that might appeal to you. The problem is what you just mentioned. There's no sense for me that for him, people are very different. That if you do this, this, and this, then this will happen. Now, maybe he would disagree with me and point to different areas of that book where he does talk about difference, and that's true. But the overall feeling I'm left with is that he's very much talking like a salesman rather than a therapist.
Yeah.
So I don't like that aspect of it much.
Which, you know, I can see why some people that would appeal to. Yeah. One of my downfalls being self-employed is that I'm a rubbish businesswoman. You know, the advertising, the putting yourself out there and all that doesn't sit well with me anyway. So I would imagine this book is a lot around that. If you're talking about pitching and selling yourself and keeping them in the game for 8 weeks and everything, it does sound kind of like a PPI type telephone conversation that you would have.
Yeah. So, for example, and we'll talk about this maybe in the podcast we're going to do, but one of the most important things for me when you're actually meeting somebody for the first time is seeing them as unique and human, and of course keeping connection or building up the relationship is important, but for me it's important so that I can get to know the person.
Yeah.
For him it seems important to keep them so they'll keep coming, and there'll be like, and he doesn't quite say it like this, but it reads like this, that your person will actually pay you.
Yeah. I think
So,
in the write-up it says about closing the deal.
yeah.
And making sure that the client comes back.
Yeah. So it's very written like that, which I don't like particularly. So what did I like about it? I like the fact when he talks about things like initial sessions for family therapists and initial sessions for couples therapists. So he does allude to how things might be different or similar if it's a couple or if it's a family.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But again, I've got the same flavour that it's a lot about the way this is written is about cure them as quick as possible, number one, and secondly, make sure they come back and, in your words or his words, close the deal.
So who do you think this book's going to appeal to?
That's a very good question. Not me.
From people with a hurry up driver.
Not me particularly. But having said, I've just said all that, and I'm going to say some other things which I quite like about. There are people listening out there or going to watch this who I'm sure may be adverse to coming to therapy week after week after week after week after week. And if you said to them, right, we can resolve this problem in 7 and 8 sessions if we do this, 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 and this, that might really appeal to them.
Yeah. I'd be curious about statistics about whether after 6 to 8 weeks, I don't know, 6 months, 12 months down the line, that these people still felt the same.
Well, that would be an interesting question. There's nothing in that book in terms of follow-up.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So I really don't know. But I think people who want to, I don't know about having a hurry-up driver, but who actually wants to have, maybe they would have a hurry-up driver, but anyway, resolution really quickly. Like somebody says them, a bit like a doctor, you go to the doctors, you go to the dentist, and they say, if you do this, this, and this, and this, then things will be okay. If you take these tablets for 7 days, and you take one and then, one at that time, one at that time, things will be okay. And it's written in that sort of flavour in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe it's got its place. There was something that I read in the write-up as well about building trust up quite quickly. And yeah, clinicians must build trust, communicate what they have to offer, and ensure that the client feels different when they walk out to when they did when they walk in. I'm not sure how you can build trust that quickly.
No, I'll say it's written very quickly. Let me tell you something I did quite like and I was interested in. He has 2 or 3 chapters on when things go wrong.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So in other words, he puts them to classifications, things like what happens if the person is resistant to therapy? What you do? What happens if somebody comes in who's passive aggressive? What do you do? What happens if somebody comes in who is argumentative? What happens if somebody's coming as a different client? And he has strategies for each one of these characters. So in one way, it's quite nice because it gives the beginner, I think, at least a sense of a plan, or at least a sense of structure.
Yeah.
And for the very, very beginning people, I can see they might be soothed by that. It reminded me a bit like when I did my first placement in 1985, and I went on a terrible counselling course, by the way, and I was sitting for my first ever client, and I was so anxious. I think if I'd had this book in front of me, maybe it would have all turned out wonderfully much quicker. I don't know. Perhaps I wouldn't have been so anxious. I'd be much more soothed because I'd have a strategy for everything.
Yeah, I can see that, you know, when I can remember that first session, I had so many notes and everything that I got it all planned out in my head, and none of it went according to plan.
No, that's a problem. One of the problems I found with this book. Perhaps I don't know if I should have reviewed this book, because the more I'm talking to you, I don't know how many nuggets I got from it. But one of the things that annoyed me was really, it gave a lot of strategies, lots of plans, which I'm just saying the positive side is it can soothe people for the first time.
Yeah.
However, for me, it was so overwhelming. There were too many plans, too many strategies, too many deals, too many this, too many that. I never remembered all that.
Yeah.
In my first counselling course as well, they talked about keeping in touch with the client, and that's about all I remembered. Not, you know, if you do this and then you go to that, and then you go to the second stage, then you'll go to the third stage. It was just too overwhelming for me. However, that's one. So people who might buy this, people who would like to cure people in 8 sessions, people like lots of strategies, perhaps somebody who's actually going to do therapy or counselling with a couples session, because it's got certain strategies and outcomes for couples sessions. Well, the first one again, and the same as well with family therapists, what happens in the first session. So if there's certain, if you're going to start out at the beginning with either of those specifications, that might be quite interesting.
Yeah.
It does, believe it enough, talk about transference, which you know, in a very elementary way for the first session, which I thought was quite interesting, given that it was like a cookbook in many other ways.
Yeah.
I was pleased about that. I did like actually him talking about you know, people actually come to therapy from all these different areas in terms of social media, and that was interesting. I don't think there was much about the relationship in this book, though. So when he talks about make connections, he's talking about in terms of making connections so they'll stay and you'll broker the deal rather than anything else.
Which I think there is probably a place for this book somewhere, but it does sound quite salesy.
Yeah, well, I think the place is for people, again, I'm sort of repeating myself, but I think it's for people who like strategies.
Yeah.
And like to have a book that prepares you for anything that might go wrong.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm as you're talking, I'm kind of thinking, I don't know, NLP-ish, when
yes,
you know, you kind of head them off at the pass, you tell them what their problems are and offer solutions before they you know, come up with a reason why not, type of thing. Yeah.
That's probably a good way to do it. We just talk quite a bit about making interpretations, just like you have just there, actually.
Yeah.
And in many ways, like I said, I'm the wrong person to review it in some ways, because I would be a terrible short-term therapist. But I was thinking then, if you've only got 7 or 8 sessions, then this book moves to the chase pretty quickly, or enables you to do it.
And as you said early on, there are situations where sometimes we do only have 6 or 8 sessions, and maybe it's about making as big an impact as we can in those 6 to 8 sessions. Interesting.
It is, because also somewhere in that book, he does talk about referring people on, and I thought that was good. So there are some nuggets in that book. And I say, if you really believe in short-term therapy and a book to prepare you for anything that might happen and to give you strategies and actions and plans, then it is a good book for you. It just didn't appeal to my long-term chess playing.
Yeah.
I'm contemplating for an hour.
Yeah, and
Or,
you know,
come back 6 years time or something.
but maybe that's one of the things that is around a lot more now is that, you know, instant gratification, that quick
Right,
fix,
that's a very good point, and he does talk about that in the book. So
yeah,
what people want now is quick fixes,
yeah,
and I think the book is written from that position. It's really written from the person who wants to, you know, a quick fix, instant gratification, and that's what he's saying really. That, and he's also saying, which is a good point, I think, is that the in his opinion, and maybe it's true because he's written from the state. He's a therapist in the States. He's saying people are much more knowledgeable, so they know what they want more in terms of whether they want a TA therapy or existentialist therapist or a Rogerian therapist or a Gestalt psychotherapist, whereas 40 or 50 years people don't even know the terms.
yeah.
So that's an interesting point.
Well, we've all got Google now, haven't we? So we can Google everything.
Well, that's the other point, Major. So I'm not sure I agree with them. Again, it'd be interesting if you did. But when I do the assessments at the Manchester Institute, most of my assessments are from word of mouth or from doctors, but not 80% from Google. Whereas in that book, he says at least 80% come from Google. So I don't know what your experience on that is.
A lot of word of mouth now, I think, which I kind of prefer, but then there are ones that just Google somebody in my area and I pop up. So yeah,
I'm sure that happens as well. So that was another thing. So yeah, I think you're correct. I think that this book is written for people who want to, you know, get things fixed, and also from the therapist's point of view, to have the strategies how to do it in 7 to 8 sessions.
in 7 easy steps.
Yeah,
sort all your problems out in 7 easy steps. I might write a book about that, Bob.
I think it'd be fantastic. Yeah, for people who want that type of quick fix and strategies to fix everything and to soothe themselves in the first session, it's probably got some merits.
Well, thank you very much. Another intriguing book. Do we know what we're doing next?
I've got so many books. I was thinking of doing the one I mentioned to you on Claude Steiner, who is the prodigal son of Eric Berne. And this book that's come out, edited by Keith Tudor, talks about some of his wonderful contributions to the world of psychotherapy general and radical psychiatry and, of course, emotional literacy. And though it might be a bit of a niche book, especially for people who are not outside transaction analysis, I think it'd be an interesting one. Yeah. So I'm thinking of doing that next.
Good stuff. Okay, so I look forward to episode 94.
Yes, it won't be next week because I'm away on holiday. I'm going to Torquay.
Well, you shouldn't be. So we'll be back in 2 weeks with episode 94. Have a good holiday, Bob. Speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.